Is anyone here happening to follow a low-carb or ketogenic diet? Anyone? Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got on the right boat. So let's get started. Following a low-carb or keto diet is pretty simple, right? It's really simple. There is literally one thing you have to do. One thing. Don't eat sugar or starch. Do that one thing, congratulations, you're on a low-carb diet. If you want to get really fancy, if you want to go out of your way, don't eat when you're not hungry, particularly if weight loss is one of your goals. So, if we really want to stretch, there's two things you have to do to follow a low-carb diet. It's really simple and straightforward, and yet, why is it that so many of us, it's kind of a train wreck? It's really simple. What is getting in the way and making us have this disaster when all we really have to do is not eat sugar and starch? So what is the problem? What is getting in the way? Is it a lack of information? Thank you. Yes. No, it is not. Last time I checked, there was about 4 billion low-carb and keto and carnivore YouTube channels, a couple of thousand podcasts, blogs, Substacks, whatever. Nobody needs more information. That is not the problem. I always say, no one needs another food list. But if you do need a food list, I have an idea where you can find it. All right, so information's not the problem. Is access the problem? Is the issue that you can't procure the food you need? You have to get all this special stuff and all these powders and potions and all these complicated. Is that the problem? No, not really. Thank you. This is a smart crowd. It's almost like you've been doing this a little bit. So it's not that we lack access, especially if you follow certain people, you know that you can keep this simple and you don't have to eat all kinds of crazy food. Is it affordability? No. Again, depending on who you follow in our community, you could spend a fortune on food, or you could go to Walmart and get ground beef on sale. You could go to your supermarket and look at the weekly ad. Get cheap food, just get cheap low-carb food. So none of this is the problem. None of this is an obstacle to following a low-carb diet. So what is the obstacle? What is really missing? Yes, none of us, we were just undisciplined and we lack willpower. That's coming. So is it belief? Do we not believe in ourselves? Maybe we don't believe in the diet. Like, this is so crazy. How could this possibly be a real thing? How could this possibly work? Is it trust? Do we not, again, so I think the belief is more, do we not believe in ourselves that we're actually going to do this? Trust, do we not trust the process? Again, this crazy whacked out thing, I'm going to eat all this bacon and I'm going to lose weight? There's no way. Is it hope? Have we maybe, hope and optimism kind of go together. Have we already tried and failed so many times that we're just kind of out of hope? Like, I'll just give up. I do not have another effort left in me. Or is it objectivity? Are we so close to our own selves, our own brains, that we can't step outside and look objectively at what's really happening? What is getting in my way? What is preventing me from staying consistent over the long term? So, one way that we can become more objective is to switch from being a judge to being a scientist. And I got this from one of my mentors, and she talks about taking off the judge's robe and putting on the scientist's lab coat. Because what this does is it takes you from being judgmental and, moralizing and shaming and having all this emotional heaviness to being curious. Scientists are curious. What is actually going on here? What is the evidence? What is the data? What is this telling me? And where would that lead me next? What kind of experiment should I run to maybe go in a different direction? Anyone ever said this to themselves? Just me? Okay. This time it's going to be different. I'm going to do a sardine fast. I am eating nothing but sardines until I get to my goal weight. Bottom left, we're going to do the pantry purge. I'm starting again on Monday. I'm getting rid of all of the high-carb food. We are restocking. We are serious this time. And then the bottom right there, we got locked up. Silverware. I forget sardines. I'm just fasting altogether. Yeah. I'm not doing a sardine fast. I'm just not eating. Yeah. Until I get to my goal weight, no food for me. I am ready. I am committed. This time is going to be different. And yet again, this time was supposed to be different. What happened? How do we get out of this cycle of self-sabotage and spinning our wheels? How you're not going to get the results you want if you can't actually stick to this. So how do we stick to it and stick to it consistently? Because if you know that train wreck, if you are trying to follow some type of plan and it falls apart every time you are under stress, or you get really busy at work, or there's some kind of crisis at home, when stuff hits the fan, if your plan falls apart or you can't follow the plan, you don't have a plan, you have a fantasy.
Yes, that's right.
You have a fable. You have a fanciful imagination, imaginary thing that is never going to happen. So how do we make a plan more realistic? Well, we're going to get to all of this. Here is one of the biggest problems. I stole this from Twitter. If for those of you in the back who can't see it, I'll read it. All of my plans for the future involve me waking up tomorrow with a sudden sense of discipline and adherence to routine that I have never displayed even once in my life. And they call this perfectionist thinking. Because I'm going to start Monday. I'm going to start after the holiday. I'm going to start after the low-carb cruise. Why are you going to start Monday? You're going to wake up Monday with a whole new brain. Oh, were you getting a lobotomy on Sunday night? So you're going to wake up on Monday morning with a totally different brain, totally different personality, that you're going to be able to do something you've never been able to do before? And I'm not saying we can't change, but to think that you're just going to say, that's it. I'm doing this on Monday. I'm doing this on September 1st, whatever. No, that is perfectionist thinking, and you have this fantasy about who you're going to be tomorrow, even though you weren't that person today, you weren't that person yesterday, you weren't that person last week, last month, what have you. So, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this spiral of self-sabotage doom? We start by questions. What kind of questions are you asking that might be getting in your way? I'm so glad that someone already broke the profanity wall so that I can say shitty instead of crappy. When you ask shitty questions, you get shitty answers. So, let's look at some examples of the shitty questions that get in our way. Nobody wants to be a shithead, right? Get this shit out of here. Here are some examples of shitty questions. Your brain says, you ask yourself, why can't I stick to this? And your brain, trying to do you a favor, you've asked. So your brain is responding to you by giving you an answer, right? You know that phrase, nature abhors a vacuum? Your brain abhors a vacuum too. If you ask it a question, it will give you an answer. Whether you like that answer or not, it's going to fill that space. So when you ask, why can't I stick to this? Your brain, being very helpful, wanting to give you an honest answer, tells you, well, you can't stick to it because you have no willpower, you're undisciplined, you don't want it badly enough, it's too complicated, it's too expensive, and you never stick to anything.
Thank you, brain.
You didn't stick to Weight Watchers, you didn't stick to Noom, you didn't stick to P90X, you didn't stick to 75 Hard, you didn't stick to Paleo, you didn't stick to Nutrisystem. Maria had a whole thing of the Deal-A-Meal. Who remembers Deal-A-Meal? What a thrill to see that on the Stalking Insanity, Susan Powder. You didn't stick to any of that. Why would keto be any different? That is your brain giving you an answer to the question you asked it. Another question you ask, why is this so hard? why is this so hard for me? Your brain, being a very kind, helpful brain and wanting to give you an answer, says, well, it's hard because you're the only person in your family who eats this way. No one supports you. You love sweets. It's really hard to give that stuff up. All your favorite foods are off limits. You're surrounded by high-carb foods at work. There's that receptionist with that damn bowl of candy on her desk. It's always somebody's baby shower, somebody's retirement party. There's always donuts in the break room. There's always sugar around. Your coworkers always want to go out for lunch. And they're not going to the Brazilian barbecue steakhouse. They're going to Panera. Or they're going to somewhere else where, like, you can get a salad at Panera, but it's, like, really hard to avoid all the bread. So, and maybe Monday through Friday, you stick to keto like a ninja. No problem. But weekends fall apart because your schedule is really different. It's unpredictable. But so this is why it's hard for you. I'll tell you know, you asked, I'll tell you. Oh, and don't forget that you're lazy and you have to put on willpower. Because that too. One last shitty question. My favorite. What's wrong with me? Anyone ever ask that to themselves? I know I do. Yeah. Okay. Your brain, your helpful brain that is obliging you. Well, what's wrong with you? You're a fat, lazy slob. You're too far gone. You're too old. You're just not working that hard for it. You're not that motivated. Failed at everything you've ever tried. We just went through. You failed at P90X, you failed at paleo, you failed at Weight Watchers, you'll fail at keto too. And also, in case you forgot, you're lazy and you have no willpower or discipline. That's what's wrong with you. Holy cow. What are we supposed to do with that? How on earth can we possibly move forward with all of that in our brain, all of that working against us? I'll tell you how. Ask better questions. Remember I said if you ask crappy questions, you get crappy answers. If we ask a better question, we give our brain the opportunity to provide a better answer or better answers. So instead of asking, why can't I stick to this? Because then your brain will tell you all the reasons why you can't. How about you ask, how can I stick to this? Yes, how can I stick to this? Because now, oh, never mind, wait, next slide. Another shift, a better question, instead of asking, why is this so hard? How can I make this easier? How can I change this from being hard to a little easier? What's wrong with me? This one is actually really, really hard to change, but you can start with something like, what would need to change for this to be different for me? Something about my life, my job, my mindset, my whatever. What would need to change for this to be different? So let's answer. Let's see this process in action of our brain giving us better answers. If you ask, how can I stick to this instead of why can't I stick to this? Now your brain has the opportunity to provide lots of good, helpful, constructive answers that move you forward instead of keeping you back. How can I stick to this? I could start batch cooking so there's always lots of options ready to go. When you come home at the end of a tough day and you're tired, you're pissed off, you're stressed, and you're hungry, it's really easy to reach for that box of cereal. It's really easy to reach for the kids' goldfish crackers. It's really easy to grab a granola bar. If you batch cooked 3 days ahead and you cooked a ton of chicken, steak, pork, sausages, whatever, and you leave them plain, now you have a blank canvas that you can use for anything. Batch cook. Or do like I do and just eat 90% of your food cold straight from the fridge with your bare hands. I'm not alone in that. You can make a list of low-carb options, go-to options for the restaurants my family or coworkers go to. Dining out does not have to be a problem if you know what to order. I have never, ever been to a dining establishment where there was literally nothing I could order. It might be difficult. You might have to ask for a lot of substitutions. You might even have to pay extra, which is kind of annoying. But it's worth it. You're worth it. You know, but if there's a bunch of restaurants where you typically go to, book ahead of time and make your go-to menu or your go-to options. I could seek out support. If I have a hard time doing this because no one in my family does it, look for support elsewhere. We have a room full of support here. We have an internet full of support. if you're in the right groups. Because otherwise you could have an internet full of naysayers and extremists, and we'll get to that later. Woo! All right, instead of why is this so hard? How can I make this easier? Again, now we've opened up this vista for our brain to provide helpful answers. I could find acceptable low-carb versions of my favorite foods. And this is a slippery slope. We've heard several speakers talk about this already. You know, the keto cookies, the keto brownies, the keto this. Maybe that's not ideal, but I would rather you eat a Quest bar instead of a Kit Kat. I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
And I would rather, even I think it was Rachel or somebody who has spoken a little bit, talked about transition foods. Mm-hmm. Let's use some of those keto substitutes and keto treats as kind of a bridge as you're getting used to doing this, and then you might not need them at all. But you can, or let's talk about keto foods that are perfectly acceptable. Zucchini noodles, cauliflower rice. There's so, thanks to people like Maria and other really creative cooks and recipe authors, there is no shortage of low-carb substitutes for anything you could possibly want. You can find a keto version. You can ask your family to support you a little bit more. It's like, oh, mom's doing that crazy keto diet. Oh, my wife is like on another thing again. They don't have to eat keto to support you. Yeah, no one else eats keto, so what? They don't have to. But we would hope they're at least not discouraging you, right? They don't have to eat the same way you do, but we would hope that they don't make negative comments about it. They don't kind of gripe at you. So you could get better support. How can I make this easier? There's all these meal delivery services that will literally deliver low-carb food on your doorstep if you have the budget, right? There's so many ways to make this easy. One that I like is maybe you could get professional advice tailored to your situation. Like Dr. Kessling just gave this whole talk about the individuality. Maybe you're trying to do keto in a way that isn't the best for you and your situation. Maybe you're making it harder than it needs to be. Or maybe you're going a little too easy on yourself, and that's not why you're getting results. It really depends. But maybe that's one way. Get professional guidance tailored to you. One more. What would need to change for this to be different for me? Love it. I could let go of perfectionist thinking and get comfortable with buying convenience foods. If you can afford grass-fed ribeye and organic this and small batch that, hallelujah, amen, go you. If you want to go to Walmart and get the rotisserie chicken, great, do that too. We got go to the McDonald's drive-thru, you can get the burger patties. Anyone know Kelly Hogan? Mm-hmm. She calls them meat cookies, right? Plain burger patties. Go to McDonald's, I'd like 10 plain burger patties, please. They'll give them to you in a container and you go. I could become okay with simple meals. Who was it? Again, Dr. Kessling, why are we making it so complicated? Protein, vegetable, fat, done. Since we've already gone there, I will share something with you from one of my mentors. She says, not every meal needs to be an orgasm in your mouth. I wish I could take credit for that, but yeah, no, just, meat, veg, done. You could plan better for the weekends, like I said, if you do really, really well with keto, low carb through the week, and come Friday night, Saturday, it's a disaster. It's that train wreck that we saw. The nice thing about weekends is they're coming.
Right.
It's not, oh, it's Friday again. How did that happen? It was just Friday 6 days ago. Yeah, it was. Like every week since you've been alive. So it's coming. Plan ahead for it. Weekends don't have to derail you unless you let them. I could learn to set boundaries and say no. Is it hard for you to stick to something because you're constantly on the go, doing favors for people, taking care of everyone else, and you are last on your priority list if you even make it onto the list? You moms, I'm looking at you, dads too, but here's my favorite.
Yes. What
would need to change? How could I make this easier? Stop following people who scare the shit out of you.
Right.
I think I said this on, Monday? Whatever the first day of our talks was, someone asked about how would you advise someone to, who to follow, who not to follow on social media. And I said something like, if you're following someone, whether it's watching their videos, listening to their podcast, whatever, And the only thing you ever get from it or from that person is more fear and more anxiety and more doubt, because everything out of them is making you doubt yourself. Everything out of them is making your world smaller, your diet smaller. Everything's toxic. This is poisonous. This is killing you. You're doing this wrong. How about we stop following those people?
That's good. Selling something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all selling something, but if we're terrifying you into buying what we're selling, that's different.
Yeah.
So, what if? Another way to improve things is to ask, what if? What if I did some meal prep? What if I filled my fridge with things I don't need to cook? Right? Rotisserie chicken, deli meat, pre-made hard-boiled eggs. Nice if you want to cook all your food from scratch, you don't have to. What if I got an accountability buddy? Online, in person, whatever you prefer. What if I gave myself permission to start small and rack up some quick, easy wins? Instead, Monday, I'm changing my whole diet. I'm going to the gym at 5:30 a.m. I'm going to be in bed by 9:30. How about we pick like one really small, easy thing and build from there, instead of expecting to be perfect and then having that fiery train wreck? Another quote from someone that I follow: what if I saved the day instead of blowing it? We heard someone say earlier, if you go outside, you're about to get in your car and there's one flat tire, you don't go and slash the other three. So what if, how many of us, I feel like most of us probably have a lot of momentum and consistency with keto now, but when you were newer, how many times did you maybe have that donut at the office? I've ruined the day, I've blown it, I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll just eat everything today because tomorrow, game on. What if you just had that donut and that was it for the day? The next meal, back on plan. You are only ever one bite away from being back on plan. And if you had that donut and that was the only sugar and starch you had for the day, your total carb intake for that day is still so much lower than what the average person eats, and so much lower than what you and me and all of us were eating before we started eating this way. Okay, let's talk about solving the right problem, because we could ask ourselves questions, but if we're asking the wrong questions, or we're asking questions targeted at the wrong problem, that's not going to get us anywhere either. So I'm going to give you one example, but the technique I'm going to introduce to you can be applied to any issue that you might have with food, or frankly with any habit change or change you're trying to make in your life. It doesn't have to be food. So I'm going to use the example of nighttime eating, because I know no one has that problem. So this is totally hypothetical, totally theoretical, because none of us has ever found ourselves at midnight like a little squirrel looking through the pantry, opening the fridge, even though you opened the fridge 30 minutes before. Maybe somebody bought something. Maybe the fairy went shopping and there's some food in there now that I didn't see an hour ago when I opened the fridge. We've all been there, that's why this is so funny. Okay. So we've got to play detective. This, again, taking off the judge's robe, becoming curious, looking for clues, looking for evidence of things. And a really good question to ask yourself is, why am I doing this? Nighttime eating or binge eating, whatever the thing is for you, going off plan on weekends, whatever the issue is. Why am I doing this? And why does it make total sense? Because even when we have behaviors that hurt us, we're doing that for a reason. It's not like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Well, you might not know why, but there is a reason. So, why would it make total sense that I'm raiding the fridge at midnight? That I'm, nighttime eating? Am I actually hungry? Am I just simply not eating enough during the day? I'm not feeding myself enough because you have to fast, you have to eat only this. We've been so sort of cautioned to control our food. What if you're actually just hungry and there's no deep psychological thing, your body just needs fuel? Am I rewarding myself? I deserve it. I've had a tough day. It's been a long day. I deserve this. Fill in the blank item. Is this my source of pleasure? Is there just not a whole lot of other fun in my life? I mean, food is fun, let's get real. Anyone who says it's not, I don't want to sit with them. So, is food really giving you some joy? Is food your escape hatch? Is food, I mean, some of us use food, some use alcohol, gambling, shopping, whatever. Is that how you numb out? If things are really difficult, things are really stressful, like you're gonna take the edge off. That chocolate, that bag of chips, it's gonna help take the edge off. Maybe it's just a habit. Maybe it's just that for the past 20 years, you've been sitting in that recliner watching TV, and recliner plus TV equals bag of chips. Or, anyone here watch The Big Bang Theory? So Sheldon you're in my spot. He had his spot on the couch, and heaven help the person who sits in it. We all have that. My mentor calls it an eating chair. You have the recliner, your spot on the couch, again. Or sometimes, especially if you're watching TV or watching Netflix or something with your spouse, with your partner, it's just our thing. We watch TV and eat. And so it doesn't have to be some psychological thing. You don't always need therapy. It could just be that you are so in the habit of doing it that you do it without even thinking, and that's all it is. And I do have to skip this because I forgot to bring the thing I was going to write. But basically, he was, I'll just say, long story short, and I really wish I had the quote, he was confirming all of this. Once we identify why we have the behavior, it's so much easier to fix it because I can use something else besides food. Now, except if you're hungry, just eat. That is actually a food problem. If you are rewarding yourself, if you're numbing out, could you change your life in such a way that you don't need to escape from it or numb out from it? Or if you can't, if you're in a really stressful time of life, could you find a different way to release that stress other than eating high-carb foods? So if we really just, again, have to solve the right problem.
Good.
Give me some guesses. What's the most toxic word for genuine habit change?
Perfection.
Perfection's a good one. I can't is a good one. And there's so many. There's no right one. If I had to think of the most toxic word, it's only. I only lost 2 pounds this month.
Yeah.
My A1C has only come down 1 point since last time. My ketones are only 0.7. I have banned my clients from using the word only, especially with regard to weight loss. You only lost 3 pounds this month? Well, if you had gained 3 pounds this month, you'd probably be freaking out, beating yourself up because you're thinking, 3 pounds, 3 pounds is a really big deal. Why is 3 pounds any less of a big deal when you've lost them? Because we're hoping to lose 10? No more only. Another thing we think, remember I said, what tiny little things can we start with? Instead of trying to climb the whole mountain all at once, what is the first little thing I could do to just start getting some traction, just start proving to myself that I am capable of change, that I actually can do things differently. You have to stop saying that's not good enough. If you say that to yourself, that won't be good enough, that's not enough, that is your cue to do it. That's your trigger to actually do that and prove yourself wrong. Maybe it is good enough. You won't know if you don't try it. So we've probably all seen this as a pretty popular image, or you've seen versions of it. You can't climb that ladder. Well, I'm really short. Some of you might be able to. I have to take these teeny tiny steps, and then it's easy to get to the top. But if you ask me to take this giant leap right out of the gate, it's not going to happen. We are not Superman. We cannot leap tall ladders. We cannot change habits in a single bound. We've got to go just little by little. So, you have to take these small steps, and you have to let them be okay. You have to give yourself permission to take small steps. Because if you have a history of trying to take those big steps and failing, and trying and failing, we're gonna do that again. We're gonna try that same failed strategy again. Another one of my favorite it's not a hack, I don't know, approaches or methods regarding habit change, or here we're talking about keto specifically, is the difference between consistency and perfection. And this might be hard for some of you in the back to see, but This is a graph of somebody who is trying to stick to a keto diet, and they are aiming to be perfect, aiming for perfection. And this is a 21-day graph, so it's about 3 weeks. And you see from 0 to 10 on the left on that y-axis. A 0 is, let's start with 10. 10 is you knocked it out of the park. 20 total grams or fewer, you're eating your whatever, like, I mastered keto today, I was a keto warrior. Done. A 0 is I am face first and frosting, and there's like sprinkles on my face. I'm woken up out of a stupor, I don't know what's going on. But then there's this whole spectrum in between, from 0 to 10, right? And so this person is aiming to be perfect. And if you can't see,
Take 11.
well, yeah, so we're getting there. There's a few 10s, a couple of 10s, so this person is perfect. Some days this person is nailing keto. And then there's a couple of 9s and 8s, but there's also some 4s and 3s and 1s, and yeah, like Rachel said, day 11 is a 0. And so this person is all over the map. They think they're going to be perfect, they're trying to be perfect, and they are perfect sometimes, rarely. Now let's compare that to somebody who is aiming to be consistent. This person is like, I'm not even going to try to be perfect because A, I know that's not even possible. B, that's the way I've tried it every time in the past and I ended up in that fiery bus wreck. So I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to do the best I can every day. And my best might look different every day, but forget perfection because it's not going. So now, we don't have any 10s. This person is never what we or what they for themselves would define as perfect. Never. But there's no 0s, no 1s or 2s. In fact, if you look closely, this person is a 6 or better every day. So this person is not knocking it out of the park, but they're doing pretty damn good all the time. And so who do we think is going to get better results?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The person who's trying to be perfect and falling on their face half the time, or the person who lowered the bar a little bit, but let's be realistic, the bar is still high enough that they're going to get results. Maybe their weight loss is going to be a little slower. Maybe the diabetes, the type 2, is going to get reversed a little more slow. The blood sugar is going to come down more slowly, but they're making progress, however slow that progress may be. One more thing, a couple more things maybe. There's another concept called a minimum baseline. And the minimum baseline is all about what can I do on my worst day? When stuff is hitting the fan, what is realistic for me to do? What can I do when I'm tired, depressed, pressed for time? Because this is what I said earlier. If your plan falls apart at the slightest blip in your life, you don't have a plan, you have a fantasy. So what is a plan that's a little more realistic? And again, we're going to have to lower the bar. And that's okay. We have to be okay with doing that. And again, anyone read the book Atomic Habits? Yeah, if you haven't, anyone who hasn't, look at all the hands that went up. Highly recommended, really. If I could put any of it into practice, I'd be dangerous. But really good concept, hypothetically, for those who can actually implement them. But that's what we're talking about here. He talks about casting a vote for the person you want to be. And I think Bronson and Natalie mentioned this too, that whatever action you take, even if it's small, you have still done the thing. If you had planned to work out for 40 minutes and the day got away from you, it's not going to happen. Can you do 10 push-ups in your kitchen while the steak is grilling?
Yep.
Can you do, some air squats while you're watching the TV later in the day? So there's always a way to do something, and that could be your minimum baseline. My minimum baseline is I'm going to take the stairs instead of the elevator. Like, that's it. What's something that you can do, and then you have all those check marks at the bottom. You were not 100% every day, but you showed up, you did something. And what this does is it starts to provide that evidence for your brain that you are changing and that you can stick to things and that you are capable of being a little bit different, even if the process is really slow. This is the evidence we're looking for.
Yes.
Okay, so I might actually end a little bit early, only because of that missing Schwarzenegger quote, I'm sorry. But let's recap about moving from being a judge to being a scientist. Again, we're going to take off the judge's robe, we're going to don the scientist's lab coat, and what this does is it takes away the shame and the guilt and the uncertainty and the doubt, which frankly is what keeps most of us stuck. It keeps us from going where we say we want to go. Even though it feels very natural, it's completely normal that our brain is doing this, but it's not helping us. So we have to move from that, not banging that gavel, to becoming curious. Be unbiased, be willing to experiment, and when I say unbiased, think back to the nighttime eating. Instead of, what's wrong with me? I can never figure this out. It's always going to be this way. I'm such a screw up. I keep messing up. When we go from judging ourselves to being curious and investigating, that's when it becomes even possible to ask those questions. Why am I doing this? Okay, I know this chocolate tastes amazing. Like, that's maybe a reason why I'm doing it, but why? I ate perfectly good meals all day. Why do I need these chips at 11 p.m.? Why do I need this pizza Saturday at midnight? Whatever it is, but you can't even ask those questions unbiasedly, whatever, without bias. You can't ask them objectively unless you take the emotion out of it. Why does it make sense? I did have a really hard day. Oh, it makes sense that I needed to numb out. Can I do it without sugar? And it's so, nobody, and other speakers have said this before me, no one ever changes through shame.
Right.
No one ever, and none of the doctors in here do this, but I mean, so many of you have had doctors that will shame you about your weight or about your medical conditions or whatever. None of us ever changed or ever will change through being ashamed of ourselves or thinking there's something wrong with us. If you think there's something wrong with you, you will actually keep eating that stuff and keep doing those behaviors because it's reinforcing that identity of I'm a failure, I'll never figure this out, something's wrong with me, and you will keep doing things that prove that right. Thank you. That's why we have to start asking, how can I start making this different? So I hope that is helpful, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the